Hey gamers, I am John, host of Video Games in the World. 20 years ago, something went wrong in the happy-go-lucky world of Nintendo. In 1999, a video game where the most loved characters of Nintendo went toe-to-toe against one another in a fun and exciting fighting video game was released. That game was titled Super Smash Bros. For years, Super Smash Bros. Has been a very popular fighting video game where your favorite characters from Nintendo went toe-to-toe against one another. Many people loved playing this game so much that it was so boring to play alone. Everyone loved playing with friends and family. Of course, some kids, teens, and adults got so competitive it led to arguments. Well, competitions are competitions. Let us begin with the history of Super Smash Bros. Enjoy! Super Smash Bros. Is a crossover fighting video game series that features various characters from Nintendo. The series was created by Masahiro Sakurai, who has directed every game in the series. The gameplay objective differs from that of traditional fighters in that the aim is to knock opponents off the stage instead of depleting life bars like in the usual fighting games like Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat, Tekken, Dead or Alive, and so on. The game was developed by HAL Laboratory, a Nintendo first-party developer during 1998. It began as a prototype created by Masahiro Sakurai and the late Satoru Iwata in their spare time, Dragon King the fighting game, and featured no Nintendo characters. However, Sakurai hit on the idea of including fighters from different Nintendo franchises in order to provide atmosphere which he felt was necessary for a home console fighting game, and his idea was approved. Although never acknowledged by Nintendo or any developers behind Super Smash Bros., third-party sources have identified Namco's 1995 fighting game, The Outfoxies, as a possible inspiration. The game had a small budget and little promotion, and was originally a Japan-only release, but its huge success saw the game released worldwide. The first game spawned a sequel with updated graphics, new characters, and including an adventure mode. The game was titled Super Smash Bros. Melee, and it was released on the GameCube. It was as popular as a fighting game. On the Wii, the next title was Super Smash Bros. Brawl, in which not only multiplayer was for 4 like the previous two, but it was also capable of online gameplay. Then came Smash Bros. For the Wii U and the 3DS, which included more characters including Capcom's very own Mega Man and Square Enix's Cloud Strife from Final Fantasy VII. And finally, there's Smash Bros. Ultimate for the Nintendo Switch, in which every single character from past titles are in the game. Smash Bros. Was so popular it's been shown in esports tournaments as well. Not to forget, some aspiring game designers created their own fan-made Smash Bros. Games that included non-Nintendo characters and at times would include characters from their favorite anime shows such as Dragon Ball, Bleach, and so on. Let us not forget also another game that was inspired by Smash Bros. Is PlayStation All-Stars Battle Royale, in which characters from different PlayStation titles go toe-to-toe against one another. Now let's start with the games. Super Smash Bros. Super Smash Bros. Is a Nintendo All-Star fighting game that was published by Nintendo and developed by HAL Laboratory. Originally released in Japan on January 21st of 1999 and released on American soil on April 26th of that same year. Super Smash Bros. Is the first game in the saga released for the Nintendo 64. In this game, players get to play as their all-time favorite Nintendo characters. The game was released on the Wii's Virtual Console on December 21st, 2009, 10 years after its release. Since this is the first game and has no adventure mode, there is no plot outline. But the 12 fighters battle against an evil antagonist known as Master Hand. The game is played up to 4 players and they can choose 8 characters from Nintendo in the beginning, such as Mario, Donkey Kong, Link, Samus, Yoshi, Kirby, Fox, and Pikachu. The 4 secret characters are Jigglypuff, Captain Falcon, Luigi, and Ness. Players can also wield various items to attack their opponents. They can even throw a Pokeball where any type of Pokemon comes out, but in rare occasions, Clefairy and Mew come out. You can play against 3 of your friends or family members, enjoying long hours of fun and excitement. In Versus mode, you can play against your friends or fight in teams. When time runs out and neither of your opponents have been defeated once or are tied, players get to play in sudden death with critical percentage of HP. In Campaign mode, you can choose 8 Nintendo characters, but there are adventure stages such as Break the Targets, Board the Platforms, and Race to the Finish. In Race to the Finish, you have to run as fast as you can, avoiding polygon-like enemies. You fight against single, and sometimes you fight against team characters such as Yoshi Team, Kirby Team, and the Fighting Polygon Team. Kirby and Fighting Polygon teams are the toughest ones when played in the highest difficulty setting. But before the Fighting Polygon Team, you get to fight against Metal Mario. After that, Race to the Finish. The Campaign mode is comprised of 11 stages and 3 bonus stages. Certain conditions are required to obtain the 4 bonus characters of the game, such as beating the game in normal mode, beating all Break the Targets and all Board the Platforms with the 8 characters, and also beating the game under 20 minutes or with any character to unlock a certain character. The graphics are 64 bits with 3D action and effects. However, the characters are rendered in 3D polygons because in that time, graphics were not as advanced as they are today, where they look more realistic. Hirokazu Ando is the composer of the first game, and the theme of the game is very memorable. The themes of classic games such as Super Mario Bros., The Legend of Zelda, Metroid, Star Fox, and so on are enhanced, and they sound very catchy. When I was 12 years old, I remember when I first laid eyes on the commercial. It was so funny that I always laughed every time I saw it. When I turned 13 and went on vacation to New York when I was living in the Dominican Republic at that time, I remember playing this game with my cousins and friends. Before playing this game, we were still GoldenEye freaks. Super Smash Bros. Melee. Super Smash Bros. Melee is a Nintendo All-Star fighting video game that was developed by HAL Laboratory and published by Nintendo. Originally released in Japan on November 21st, 2001, the hit game arrived on American shores on December 2nd of that same year. Super Smash Bros. Melee is considered to be the best in the series by many fans, though others believe that its successor, Brawl, is the best. This game featured more newcomers that were not in the first game. Super Smash Bros. Melee features 26 characters, 14 more than its predecessor. Initially, there are 15 characters, but more can be unlocked depending on specific tasks that the players must complete. With the release of the Nintendo GameCube in 2001, Super Smash Bros. Melee was the most awaited game ever since, and it's one of Nintendo GameCube's highly acclaimed titles before games like The Wind Waker, Metroid Prime, Super Mario Sunshine, Star Fox Assault, and so on. Like its predecessor, the game differs from traditional fighting games in which the one that inflicts more damage on opponents has the victory. Players must force their opponents beyond the boundaries of the stage. Most attacks inflict damage and can, if enough damage is dealt, knock back the enemy. The higher the percentage value, the easier it is to knock away. Single player mode can provide a variety of side-scrolling challenges. In classic mode, players fight against various opponents from Nintendo until getting to the final boss. The game also includes adventure mode, in which not much of a storyline is told. Players can also play in multiplayer mode, in which they can fight against their friends and family or in teams against both. Most people fight using lives and cutting off time. When time runs out and no one has been knocked out of the stage, the fighters battle in sudden death mode with critical percentage. Players fight against bosses such as Master Hand, Crazy Hand, and in adventure mode, they fight against Giga Bowser. Players can choose 14 characters with 12 more that can be unlocked by doing some specific tasks. There are also more stages than its predecessor, and it will blow many gamers away with the action, the excitement, and all the fun that they can possibly have. The game's graphics have differed greatly from those of the Nintendo 64. Characters and stages would no longer be rendered in polygonal looks, but in amazing 3D effects. The only character that's 2D rendered sprite is Mr. Game & Watch. The graphics of the game's intro has wowed many players around the world. The composers of the game are Hirokazu Ando, Shogo Sakai, Tadashi Ikegami, and Takuto Kisuta. The game contains music from some of Nintendo's most successful game titles, such as Super Mario Bros., The Legend of Zelda, Metroid, Star Fox, Fire Emblem, and so on. Some themes have been rearranged in orchestra pieces by the New Japan Philharmonic. Fire Emblem was never released in the United States until Marth and Roy debuted in the game. Since Fire Emblem was unknown in the States at the time, the Japanese intended not to release Marth and Roy overseas, but it was too late, and it was the time for Fire Emblem to be known in the country. And so, the first Fire Emblem game was released overseas on the Game Boy Advance. In Japan, that game was the 7th title in the series released in 2002, Fire Emblem Rekka no Ken, The Blazing Sword. Sonic was meant to be released in the game, but then decided not to, and he would not be seen until Brawl. Mewtwo and Pichu of the Pokemon series were playable, but they were excluded in Brawl, which was disappointing to replace Mewtwo with Lucario. Super Smash Bros. Brawl. Super Smash Bros. Brawl is the third installment in the Super Smash Bros. Saga. This game has gotten worldwide fame after its release. Super Smash Bros. Brawl was released in Japan on January 31st, 2008, then 2 months later on March 9 of that same year. The game was released in North America. This game is the first one in the series to feature online gaming. However, the Wii's online capacity was not very good, although many players loved playing together for 4 players either with friends or family members. The story begins in a world where Mario and Kirby begin a duel until suddenly a dark evil approaches the land. This new threat is known as the Subspace Emissary. Mario joins with other characters to fight this new evil as well. New allies come to the game such as Sonic, Lucario, Snake, Ike, Meta Knight, Pit, Olimar, and so on. They go to different parts of the world fighting against the Subspace Emissary and the Nintendo villains as well. Players can choose their favorite Nintendo characters to duke it out with other ones. This game can be played up to 4 people. There are lots of ways of playing this game: Adventure Mode, Brawl, Free for All, Team Battle, and so on. When players complete the game many times, they can unlock special bonuses and also secret characters from other games. When fighting, players can use items such as baseball bats, beam sabers, pokeballs, and so on, as well as other new items too. Assist trophies can also help the players in battle. However, there is a special item that can unleash a character's ultimate attack, the Smash Ball. To take a break from fighting, players can play minigames as well. Not to mention, they can play classic games and Brawl for only a short amount of time. Most of the graphics are very improved since the first Super Smash Bros. Game, and also since Melee. Most of the landscapes in the game and in different stages look mostly realistic during some scenarios. Some stages from previous titles made a comeback as well, as much to the delight of those who played the first game and Melee. Many people were excited to see that Sonic the Hedgehog and Solid Snake made their debut in the game, including their stages, which are the Green Hill Zone and Shadow Moses Island. Super Smash Bros. Brawl continues to be very much loved and very popular as well. Super Smash Bros. For the Wii U and the 3DS. Super Smash Bros. For the Wii U and the 3DS are 2 games in the Super Smash Bros. Series released as part of Super Smash Bros. 4 Pair, and the handheld counterpart of Smash Bros. Wii U is the 3DS. Although most gameplay elements are shared between the 2 versions, there are several elements which distinguish the 2. The game is playable on the Nintendo 3DS in full stereoscopic 3D. It is the first Smash title to be released on a handheld. Super Smash Bros. For the Nintendo 3DS was released on September 13, 2014 in Japan, and was released in most other parts of the world on October 3rd of that same year. The game was released in stores one day earlier in Germany, October 2nd, and one day later in Australia on October 4th, and then in Hong Kong and Taiwan on July 24th, 2015, and in South Korea on September 10 of 2015. The Wii U version was released on November 21st, 2014 in the Americas, and was followed by Europe 7 days later, Australia and New Zealand on November 29, and in Japan on December 6, 2014. The gameplay in both 3DS and Wii U remains the same as the previous titles in the series. Returning characters are in the game from previous titles such as Melee and Brawl. Examples are Dr. Mario and Mewtwo. There are also many newcomers such as the famous Capcom mascot, Mega Man. There's also characters such as Lucina, Pac-Man, Rosalina, and Luma, Greninja, Bowser Jr., Little Mac, Palutena, and so on. Another well-known Capcom character making his debut in the game is none other than Street Fighter's very own Ryu, but is only downloadable as a DLC. Roy returns since Melee but only as a DLC, and Bayonetta is also a DLC. And for the very first time, Cloud Strife from Final Fantasy VII makes his debut in the game. It was interesting to see Cloud being in the game, and it's like remembering how Final Fantasy VII was originally headed to the Nintendo 64 many years ago. But due to the limited capacity of the cartridges, the game was developed for the PS1. New gameplay features includes the customization of characters and custom Mii fighters altering their attacks and giving them unique power-ups. These characters can be transferred between the 3DS and the Wii U versions of the game, as well as certain items earned in specific modes. Additionally, players can use Amiibo to train computer-controlled players and import them into a match. Both versions of the game support local and online multiplayer. Whereas local and online matches with friends have fully customizable rules, online matches with strangers are divided into two modes: for fun and for glory. For fun features random stages and items, with time matches is only and Omega stages omitted, while for glory features stock matches with no items exclusively on Omega stages, and features both standard Smash one-on-one battles, all of which the player's wins and losses are recorded from for glory. Customized characters, Mii fighters, and Amiibo cannot be used in online matches against strangers. Both games have single-player modes, but unlike previous titles like Melee and Brawl, there is no story mode. Still, players can enjoy Classic Mode, All-Star Mode, Event Matches, Multiplayer Modes, and so on. The former Nintendo CEO President Satoru Iwata announced the game in 2011 to be the sequel to Brawl at E3, and as said, it would be made for both the 3DS and the Wii U. But development only officially began following the completion of series creator Masahiro Sakurai's other project, Kid Icarus Uprising, in March of 2012. The game was later revealed to be a joint project between Bandai Namco Studios and Sora Ltd., with various staff members from Bandai, Namco Soul Calibur, and Tekken series assisting Sakurai in development. At E3 2013, Sakurai stated that the tripping mechanic introduced in Brawl had been omitted, with him also stating that the gameplay was between the fast-paced and competitive style of Melee and the slower and more casual style of Brawl. As for the music of the game, like its predecessors, there are various rearrangements of famous themes from every game in the series by Nintendo. Various well-known video game composers and musicians such as Masashi Hamauzu, Yuzo Koshiro, Yasunori Mitsuda, Motoi Sakuraba, Yoko Shimomura, Mahito Yokota, Akari Kaida, Michiru Yamane, Koji Kondo, Kasumi Tokata, and Masafumi Takada, among many others, contributed arrangements for the game, while the original score was written by Bandai Namco's in-house second sound team. Both titles became an instant success upon their release. Although, some people were disappointed in not seeing some characters from Brawl, and also some being only downloadable content, they still loved them both. The appearance of Mega Man made fans of the legendary Blue Bomber very happy, as there has been no Mega Man games since 10, and also due to the cancellation of Mega Man Legends 3 at the time. Cloud Strife made many fans very happy as well, because in that same year, a trailer for the Final Fantasy VII Remake was released. Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. Super Smash Bros. Ultimate is the latest installment in the series. It was released on December 7th, 2018 around the world. The game follows the series' traditional style of gameplay. Controlling one of various characters, players must use differing attacks to weaken their opponents and knock them out of the arena. It features a wide variety of game modes, including a campaign for single player and multiplayer versus modes. Ultimate includes every playable character from previous Super Smash Bros. Games, ranging from Nintendo's mascots to characters from third-party franchises and several newcomers, reaching a total of over 70. By December of 2015, planning for a new Super Smash Bros. Game had begun, with full development starting after the completion of 3DS Wii U's downloadable content. Series creator and director Masahiro Sakurai returned along with Bandai Namco Studios and Sora, the studios that developed 3DS and Wii U. The return of the studio sped up the preparation process. Sakurai's goal with Ultimate was to include every character from previous games, despite the various development and licensing problems this would cause. Various well-known video game music composers contributed to the soundtrack, with Hideki Sakimoto writing the main theme, Lifelight. The game has been supported post-release with DLC that adds new characters, stages, and music. Nintendo teased Ultimate in March of 2018 and revealed it at E3 2018 the following June. It was released worldwide on December 7, 2018 on the Nintendo Switch. The game received universal acclaim, with some critics calling it the best of the series. They praised its amount of content and fine-tuning of existing Smash gameplay elements, although its online mode received some criticism. Ultimate is the fastest-selling Switch game, shipping 12.8 million copies in under a month. The game features all the characters from previous installments of the franchise. There are also various newcomers such as Daisy, King K. Rool, Dark Samus, Ridley, Ken Masters, Chrome, Joker, and for the first time from Castlevania, Simon and Richter Belmont. In terms of the voice acting, for the first time we could hear Marth and Roy speak English, because in previous installments, Japanese voice clips from Melee were only used on Marth and Roy. Except that in Brawl and in the Wii U 3DS games, Jason Atkins voiced Ike. Greg Chun of Fire Emblem Heroes reprised the voice of Ike after replacing Jason. Solid Snake returns, but despite David Hayter being replaced, his voice clips are still used. The story of the game takes our heroes into the World of Light in an adventure to stop the forces of Galim and Darkhan. For the first time, there is some dialogue between some characters in the game. Like the Subspace Emissary in Brawl, the game features a navigational map and somehow resembles the classic mode of Super Smash Bros. 3DS. The skill tree is a menu item in World of Light. In it, the player can spend skill spheres in order to learn adventure skills. These are effectively power-ups akin to the skills granted by support spirits, and appear as icons resembling the stat boost icons found in Smash 4's Smash Tour and Smash Run. Obtaining a power-up also makes power-ups further down the tree available. The player can spend SP to get a power-up and gain back all of the skill spheres spent on it. Known bosses in the story mode are Giga Bowser, Dracula, Ganon, Rathalos, Gallium, and so on. Super Smash Bros. Ultimate was developed by Bandai Namco Studios and Sora Ltd., the same studios that developed Super Smash Bros. For the Nintendo 3DS and the Wii U. For the Nintendo Switch, with series creator Masahiro Sakurai returning to direct. Unlike previous Smash Bros. Games, the team was not assembled from the ground up, which sped up preparation time. The project plan for the game was in the works by December 2015, when the DLC for the 3DS and Wii U was in development and finished after it was completed. Staff gathering was done soon afterward. The development period was shorter compared to previous entries in the series. Hatena Company Ltd. also assisted with some development of some functions. Sakurai's goal for Ultimate was to include every character from previous games, as he did not want fans to be disappointed. However, he knew this would be a complex problem for both development and licensing. It will also drastically increase the cost of development. The return of Bandai and Sora made it easier for this to happen. Sakurai also wanted to adjust character abilities as to speed up the game, although not to an extent to which it would alienate players unfamiliar with the series. Sakurai knew that Ultimate was a core game for Nintendo, and that it had a dedicated player base that he did not want to disappoint, and believed that completing this goal was necessary to satisfy the fan base. Sakurai was also faced with the decision to create a completely new game or system, or build off pre-existing ones. He chose to build off pre-existing ones because there will only be about a third of the characters he desired in the final game. All the returning characters' abilities had to be rebalanced so they could work in Ultimate. Originally, gameplay would differ between Switch docked and handheld modes, but Sakurai scrapped this because the system screen in handheld was better than he thought. To finally wrap this up, Super Smash Bros. Continues to be a very much loved fighting video game. It continues to shine as one of the best games series ever made by Nintendo. I'm very sure that Satoru Iwata and Hiroshi Yamauchi, may they rest in peace, will be very proud to see the success of this fantastic series. I shall always remember playing the very first video game and will continue to do so to my last day on Earth. I am very proud of Iwata and Yamauchi for being part of this awesome project during their days in Nintendo when they were alive. I dedicate this episode also to all the players and esports players of this game, as well as Reggie Fils-Aim, happy retirement, and finally to the memories of Satoru Iwata and Hiroshi Yamauchi. Despite struggling to get this done and uploaded today, it has been a joy and a privilege to do this. I am John, host of Video Games in the World. Super Smash Bros. Forever. Have a good one, gamers.